Kubernetes is an open source orchestrator for deploying containerized applications. It was originally developed by Google, inspired by a decade of experience deploying scalable, reliable systems in containers via application oriented APIs. But Kubernetes is definitely much more than simply exporting technology developed at Google. It has grown to be the product of a rich and growing open source community. This means that Kubernetes is a product that is suited not just to the needs of internet scale companies, but to cloud native developers of all scales. Hi everyone, this is Kavya from Edureka. Welcome to today's session on kubectl commands tutorial. Before we begin, I'd like to address the agenda. Firstly, we will understand why do we need Kubernetes and what exactly it is. And then we'll move ahead and talk about what is kubectl and what is Minikube. We will also install Minikube and kubectl. Then we'll move ahead and check out some of the basic operations and commands of kubectl. Finally, we'll conclude this session by discussing a case study on booking.com. I hope the agenda is clear. Kindly take up this time to subscribe to us and do not forget to hit that bell icon to never miss an update from the Edureka YouTube channel. Also, to learn more about new trending technologies, visit our page, the link to which is given in the description box below. So without much ado, let's get started. Firstly, we will understand why do we need Kubernetes. Okay, Kubernetes is a portable, extensible, open source platform for really managing containerized workloads and services that facilitates both declarative configuration and automation. This is the technical, definition of Kubernetes. But because of its large, rapidly growing ecosystem, Kubernetes is very famous. Kubernetes services, support, and tools are widely available on the internet. So, in the definition, you come across a word that says containerized workloads and services or containerized applications. So, what is a container? Containers are very, very similar to virtual machines, but they have relaxed isolation properties to share the operating system among the application. Therefore, containers are considered very lightweight. As I've already mentioned, it is very similar to a virtual machine, and it also has its own file system, share of CPU, memory, process space, and much more. Now, as they are decoupled from the underlying infrastructure, they're portable across clouds and operating system distributions. You can see an image of the container on the screen. There is an application and its dependencies and libraries along with it. You will also have a container runtime which runs along all of these applications and host operating system and finally its underlying infrastructure. Containers have become popular because they provide many benefits such as agile application creation and deployment, continuous development, integration and deployment, dev and operation separation of concerns, observability not only surfaces OS level information and metrics, but also application health and other signals. It also offers the benefit of an environmental consistency across development, testing, and production. So basically, they are a good way to bundle and run your applications. In a production environment, you need to manage the containers that run the application and ensure that there is no downtime. For example, if a container goes down, another container needs to start. Wouldn't it be easier if this behavior was handled by a system? That's how Kubernetes comes to the rescue. Kubernetes provides you with a framework to run distributed systems resiliently. It takes care of scaling and failover for your application, provides deployment patterns, and much more. For example, Kubernetes can easily manage a canary deployment for your system. It provides you with the following features, that is, firstly, it provides service discovery and load balancing. Kubernetes can expose a container using the domain name system or using their own IP address. Now, if traffic to a container is very, very high, Kubernetes is easily able to load balance and distribute the network traffic so that deployment is stable. The next feature is that it has storage orchestration. Kubernetes allows you to automatically mount a storage system of your choice, such as local storages, public cloud services, and much more. It also offers the feature of automated rollouts and rollbacks. Here you can describe the desired state for your deployed containers using Kubernetes, and it can change the actual state to the desired state at a control rate. I'll explain you with this an example. Now, for instance, you can automate Kubernetes to create new containers for your deployment remove existing containers, and adopt all their resources to the new container. Moving on, you also have automated bin packing. Here you can provide Kubernetes with a cluster of nodes that it can use to run containerized tasks. You can tell Kubernetes how much CPU and memory, that is RAM, each container needs. Kubernetes can fit containers onto your nodes to make the best use of your resources. Another feature is self-healing. Kubernetes restarts containers that fail, replaces containers, kill containers that don't really respond to your user-defined health check, and definitely doesn't advertise them to clients until they're ready to serve. The last feature is it lets you have secret and configuration management. Kubernetes lets you store and manage sensitive information such as passwords and SSH keys. You can deploy and update secrets and application configuration without rebuilding your container images and without exposing secrets in your stack configuration. So basically, Kubernetes, in short, is an open source system for automating deployment, scaling, and management of containerized applications. Now that we know what is Kubernetes and why do we really need them, let's move ahead and talk about what is kubectl. So the kubectl is simply a command line interface. So the kubectl command line tool lets you control these Kubernetes clusters that you create. Now for configuration, kubectl looks for a file named config in the home.kube directory. Here you can specify other kubeconfig files by setting the kubeconfig environment variable or by setting the kubeconfig flag. This overview covers kubectl syntax, describes the command operations, and provides various common examples. Now, if you look at the syntax of the screen, which is used to run kubectl commands from your terminal window, you can see that it is simply kubectl command, type, name, and the flags, where command specifies the operation that you want to perform on one or more resources. For example, if you want to create, get, describe, delete, any of that. The next one is type, which specifies the resource type. Resource types are case sensitive, and you can specify the singular, plural, or abbreviated forms. Now, for example, you can, type in the following commands which produces the same output. For example, kubectl get pod1, kubectl get pods pod1, kubectl get po pod1. All of these commands produce the same output. Name, on the other hand, specifies the name of the resource. Names are case sensitive. Now, if the name is omitted, details for all the resources are explained or displayed. For example, kubectl get pods will really give you an entire overview of all the pods that are running on your cluster. When performing an operation on multiple resources, you can specify each resource by type and name or specify one or more files. To group resources if they're all the same, you can use the syntax type 1, name 2, etc. And to specify multiple resource types individually, you can just use the syntax type 1 slash name 1, type 1 slash name 2, type 2 slash name 3, etc. Flags, on the other hand, specifies optional flags. For example, you can use the -s or -- server flags to specify the address and port of the Kubernetes API server. Now that we know what is kubectl, which is just a command line tool that lets you control Kubernetes clusters and also its syntax in detail, let's move ahead and talk about what is Minikube. So Minikube is a tool that lets you run Kubernetes locally. Minikube runs on a single node Kubernetes cluster on your personal computer, which includes Windows, Mac OS, and Linux PCs, so that you can try out Kubernetes or for daily development work. All you need is Docker or similarly compatible container, or also a virtual machine environment, and Kubernetes is a single command away. That is, you can use Minikube start to get it running. The advantages of Minikube is that it supports the latest Kubernetes release, it is cross-platform, and it can be deployed as a virtual machine, a container, or on a bare metal. It also contains multiple container runtimes. So Minikube is basically a tool that lets Kubernetes run on your local machine without any installation except for the Minikube library. So in summary, Minikube is a tool that lets you use Kubernetes on your local machine without any installation except for the Minikube library. It takes advantage of your local hypervisor and launches a virtual machine that runs Kubernetes in a single node. Now to install the Minikube and kubectl, You can get the latest release or build from the official website. So without much ado, let's go and install them. So now currently I'm on my Oracle VM VirtualBox and we are working on Ubuntu. So we'll be installing the kubectl on Ubuntu, and we'll be installing using native package management, that is Debian based distributions. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to update the apt package index and install packages needed to use the Kubernetes app repository. And for that, I am going to type in the command sudo apt get update. Okay. So I have the list of commands already on my notepad. So I'm just going to copy this command and I'm going to paste it. So new packages will be installed and also the existing ones will be upgraded. So once the installations and updates have been done, I'm just going to clear the screen. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to download the Google Cloud Public Signing Key. Okay. And for that, we're going to use this command, followed by which we can add the Kubernetes apt repository. So I'm going to copy and paste this command. So finally, I'm going to update the app package index with the new repository and install kubectl. Now, once it's successfully installed, in order for kubectl to find and access a Kubernetes cluster, it needs a kubeconfig file, which is created automatically when you create a cluster using kubeup.sh or successfully deploy a Minikube cluster. Now, by default, kubectl configuration is located in the .kube/config. So now that we've installed kubectl successfully, I'm going to test to ensure the version that we've installed is up to date. So for this, I'm going to execute the command kubectl space version space dash dash client. Now we can see the Git version and we can see the major version. All of the information is given here. We have successfully installed kubectl. Now let's clear the screen. So now that we've installed kubectl, let's move ahead and install Minikube to run a local Kubernetes instance. So as we've already talked about it, Minikube is a tool that lets you use Kubernetes on your local machine without any installation except for the Minikube library. You will have to install Docker and you'll have to install VirtualBox before you can install Minikube. Otherwise, Minikube will not work. So once you do all of that, then all you can do is you can just install the Minikube library into your system. So for this, we're just going to use these commands. I'm just going to copy them and paste them. And once Minikube is installed, you can verify the version that is running the following command, that is Minikube version. You can see that we've installed version v1.20.0. So you can start the Minikube by using the command sudo minikube start. Now, once the startup phase has finished, which will take some amount of time, your Kubernetes client, that is kubectl, will have a Minikube context and will automatically start using this context. So you can also see that kubectl is configured to using Minikube cluster and default namespace by default. We'll talk about namespace in a bit. Now let us just check what nodes we will have in our cluster, which will return the Minikube hostname. And for this, I'm just going to clear my screen and type in the command sudo kubectl get nodes. You can see there is a node edureka. Its status is ready. So let us check out each of the commands that are available, some of the basic commands that are available. So first one is the get command. So what it does is the first command, it lists all the pods in PS output format. Okay. There is another type of command which lists all pods in PS output format with more information such as the node name. For that, we can just use the command kubectl get pods -o wide. Currently, we do not have any resources in the namespace, so it's not going to display any. Now, to test that kubectl can authenticate with and access your Kubernetes cluster, you can use the cluster-info command. So you can type in the command sudo kubectl cluster-info. And if kubectl is successfully authenticated with your cluster, you should see the following output. So kubectl is configured using kubeconfig configuration files. And by default, kubectl will look for a file called config in the home/.kube directory. Now, to view your kubectl configuration, you can use the view sub command. So I'm just going to type sudo kubectl config space view. And this will give you the API version, that is v1, the cluster, that's Minikube. So you can see the API version, that is v1, you can see the clusters, you can see the contexts, and you can see the correct context, kind, preferences, users. Okay, now I'm just going to clear the screen. Now, to fetch a list of clusters defined in your kube config, you can just use the get-clusters command. So I'm just going to type in sudo kubectl config get-clusters. So the output will be the list of clusters that is defined in our kube config file. And as you can see that in the output is the Minikube. So you can also delete a cluster from your config using the delete-cluster command. I'm not going to show you the output of this, but I'm just going to type in the command. Okay, so what this does is it only deletes the cluster from your config file. Okay, it does not delete the actual Kubernetes cluster. So this is really important to know. Now moving on, you can also see a list of all the configured contexts. For that, you can just use the command config get contexts. And what it does is it gives you the name of the cluster and the authentication information and the namespace. Okay, this is like just, it gives you like a list of contexts that are available. So I haven't explained you what exactly a context is. A context in Kubernetes is an object that contains a set of access parameters for your cluster. It consists of a cluster, namespace, and user triple. Contexts really allow you to quickly switch between different sets of cluster configurations. If you want to see your current context that you are working on, you can just use the current context command. Okay, and you can see that we are currently on the context Minikube. Okay, now to set a particular context, you use the set context command. So for this, I'm going to type in the command set context1. So I'm just going to name my context1, cluster dash dash cluster is equal to your cluster name. I'm just going to name this cluster1. User is equal to user1. And you can also have a namespace. We know that we have one namespace that is our default namespace, right? So I haven't really talked about namespaces either. So let me explain it to you now. So Kubernetes uses namespaces to organize objects in the cluster. You can think of each namespace as a folder that holds a set of objects. By default, the kubectl command line tool interacts with the default namespace. Now, if you want to use a different namespace, you can pass kubectl the dash dash namespace flag. So we're going to set a context, and we are also setting the namespace for that particular context. So I hope this is clear. So you can see that context1 has been created. Now you can switch between contexts with the use context command. So for that, I'm just going to type use context, and I'm just going to type the context name. So we created a context that was named context1. So I'm just going to switch to that. So it says switch to context1. If you want to check the current context, we can just use the current context command, and you can see that it has been switched to context1. Now I want to switch back to Minikube. I'm going to do that. And it says switch to context Minikube. That's great. You can also check out the list of contexts using the get context commands, and you can see that we have two, that is Minikube and context1, and the current one is where the star has been placed to. Okay, that is Minikube. Now, if you want to delete a particular context, we can do that. Okay, we will use the sudo kubectl config delete context and the context name. So we'll just name it context1. Okay. Now it says deleted context1 from the particular location. We can also view the contexts that are currently present, and we have only one, that's Minikube. So that's great. This is for contexts. So I'm going to repeat this again. A context in Kubernetes is an object that contains a set of access parameters for your cluster. I hope that's clear. Now let's go and check out namespaces. Okay, is basically again an abstraction that allows you to subdivide your cluster into multiple virtual clusters. Now by using these namespaces, you can divide cluster resources among multiple teams and scope objects properly. Now, for example, if you have a development namespace for development and test workloads and a production namespace for production workloads, so you can really divide the cluster resources among these, two teams that we have. I'm going to clear the screen. So what now we're going to do is we're going to fetch and print a list of all the namespaces in your cluster. And we are going to use the get namespace command. So sudo kubectl get namespace. So you can see the output as default, kube node lease, kube public, and kube system. Okay, now if you want to set a namespace for your current context, our current context is Minikube, you can use the set dash context space dash dash current command. I'm just going to show that. And you can see the context Minikube has been modified. Okay. Now, if you want to create a namespace, you can just simply use the create namespace command. So I'm going to use the command sudo kubectl create namespace 2. That is namespace 2 is the namespace name that you would like. You want it to be 3, you want it to be 4. That's all up to you. I'm just going to name this namespace 2. And you can see that namespace 2 has been created. Okay. Now we'll just list out all the current namespaces, and you can see that the namespace 2 has been created and it is active, and it has been created 11 seconds ago. Now you can also delete a namespace by using the delete namespace command. Deleting a namespace will delete everything in the namespace, including running deployments, pods, and other workloads. Only run this command if you're sure if you'd like to kill whatever's running in the namespace, or if you're deleting an empty namespace. So you have to be aware of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete namespace, and I'm going to delete namespace 2. Okay. You can see that namespace 2 has been deleted. That's great. And I'm just going to view the namespaces that are currently there using the get namespace command. And you can see that our namespace 2 has been deleted successfully. I'm going to clear the screen. Now, if you want to fetch all pods in a given namespace or to perform other operations on resources in a given namespace, make sure you have to include the dash dash namespace flag. Okay. So say that I want to get the pods of namespace default. And it says no resources are currently found in the default namespace, which is fair enough. So I'm just going to clear my screen now. And we will be talking about another command, the API versions command. So what this does is it prints the supported API versions on the server in the form of grouper version. Okay. And for that, we're just going to type the command sudo kubectl API versions. And this just gives the supported API versions on the server. Okay. So these are some of the most basic commands that are available. We used create, we used get, delete, we used describe, API versions, cluster info, and there are a lot more. But to just get started and to just understand how Kubernetes works, you will have to start off from the basics because this is a very vast topic. I think that you cannot go into detail that easily. You will need to have some experience over time with all of these commands that you use and their respective flags and their respective parameters that are involved here. Now we'll go ahead and check out a case study of how Kubernetes has helped Booking.com achieve their business goals. So the problem in 2016 was Booking.com migrated to an OpenShift platform, which really gave product developers very fast access to infrastructure. Now, because Kubernetes was abstracted away from the developers, the infrastructure team became a knowledge bottleneck when challenges arose. So they were trying to scale that support that wasn't sustainable. So, after almost a year of operating with OpenShift, the platform team decided to build its own vanilla Kubernetes platform and really asked developers to learn some Kubernetes in order to use it. They believe that it is not a magical platform and they're not claiming that you can just use it with your eyes closed. Here, developers really need to do some learning and they're going to do everything to make sure that they have access to that particular knowledge. That was the solution that came up with Booking.com. Now, despite the learning curve, there has been a great uptick in the adoption of the new Kubernetes platform. Before containers, creating a new service could take a couple of days if the developers understood Puppet, or weeks if they didn't. So, Puppet is the tool here which they used. On the new platform, on the other hand, it could really just take as few as 10 minutes. About 500 new services were built on the platform in the first 8 months. Booking.com has a long history with Kubernetes. In 2015, a team at the travel platform prototyped a container platform based on Mesos and Marathon. Impressed by what the technology offered, but in need of enterprise features at its scale, the site handles more than 1.5 million room night reservations a day on average. The team decided to adopt an OpenShift platform. With this, we come to the end of today's session on kubectl commands tutorial. If you have any queries or doubts, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Until next time, thank you.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!